They say the mind is a universe folded inward, humming quietly at the edge of perception. Before we begin, like this video, share it with seekers of thought, and subscribe for more deep journeys into consciousness and the unseen. Within the stillness of the skull, waves shimmer. Invisible yet endlessly active, brain waves dance through the fabric of thought like silent tides responding to a lunar rhythm no eye can see. These rhythms are not random. They are the structured pulses of consciousness itself, the coded language of perception, memory, emotion, and imagination. From the low hum of delta waves that cradle us in deep, dreamless sleep, to the sharp electric shimmer of gamma waves that light up moments of insight, the brain's symphony is constant. Every state of mind corresponds with a frequency, and, in every frequency, a possibility unfolds. These are not just electrical patterns. They are the scaffolding of inner experience, each oscillation opening a gateway to a distinct layer of cognition. Yet what moves beneath those waves? What gives them coherence, rhythm, or intention? A question, ancient as philosophy and modern. Buddhist physics asks, could thought itself be more than electrochemical sparks? Could it be quantum? Quantum thinking is not merely a metaphor. It does not belong only to particle accelerators or theoretical equations. It lives in the cracks between logical steps in the leaps of intuition, the insights that arrive before reason, the knowing that precedes language. It suggests that the mind, like the universe, is not strictly deterministic but probabilistic, fluid, entangled. To understand the bridge between brain waves and quantum thinking, we must first discard the illusion that the brain is a mere machine. It is not a closed system. It is open, pulsing with non-locality. Brain waves are traditionally measured in hertz, as oscillations per second. But what if their purpose isn't just to regulate states, but to tune consciousness into a deeper layer of reality? In ancient traditions, sages spoke of inner vibrations, of tuning the self to the cosmos. Today, science reveals similar truths beneath the microscope and within the math of quantum physics. In quantum thinking, there is no single truth until observed. States exist in superposition. Possibilities overlap. Decision is not linear, it emerges. This is mirrored in the way the brain behaves when solving complex problems. The mind does not step-by-step compute. It leaps, waits, observes internally. It feels. Then it knows. In the moments when alpha waves dominate, those calm, reflective frequencies between 8 and 13 hertz, something peculiar occurs. The mind becomes less reactive, more receptive. Creativity rises, possibility multiplies. It is in these states that insight is born, not calculated, but downloaded, as if from a field beyond the body. Theta waves, slower still, are the realm of dreams, of memory fusion, of vivid imagery and subconscious insight. These waves are closest to quantum behavior, where time distorts, where thoughts intermingle and collapse into clarity. Meditation, trance, even deep prayer. These are quantum gateways, where the mind drifts into the field of entanglement, the web that connects all things. The observer effect in quantum physics tells us that observation shapes the outcome. Thought, then, is not passive, it is an act of creation. This aligns eerily with brain imaging studies that show how mere expectation changes neural activity before action occurs. Consciousness is not a reaction, it is a cause. The frequencies we call brainwaves may be the mind's attempt to organize the infinite into the finite, to collapse the quantum into the personal. Each frequency acts like a radio tuning knob, turning our awareness toward different layers of existence. In beta, we engage the world. In alpha, we reflect upon it. In theta, we reimagine it. In delta, we release it. In gamma, we become it. Could it be that brain waves are the local signature of a non-local mind? That these frequencies are the footprints of something beyond neurons, something not constrained by time, space, or logic? Quantum thinking suggests this possibility. It suggests that consciousness may not emerge from the brain, but through it, filtered, narrowed, sculpted by waveforms, just as light bends through a prism. There are moments when we think without knowing how, when the answer simply appears, when a truth dawns, not in syllables but as a sudden inner shift. These moments are not mechanical. They are quantum. They are the entanglement of will and possibility. And brainwaves are the measurable breath of that entanglement, echoes of a deeper order pulsing through the silence of the skull. The frequencies do not lie. They reveal a dance older than the brain itself, a dance of energy, attention, and form. The question is not whether brainwaves and quantum thinking are connected. The question is whether they are the same music played. Different octaves, one biological, one universal. Both invisible, both real. Within the architecture of thought, where silence is woven with signal, the mind becomes a landscape of fields, shifting and folding, never fixed. Here, the brain ceases to be an object and becomes a field of probability, alive with the unseen, shimmering lattice through which awareness pulses like a beam refracted through water. Brainwaves are no longer mere patterns of electricity. They are coordinates on the edge of matter and meaning, mapping out the potential terrain of consciousness itself. The observer and the observed blur in this domain. Quantum thinking does not ask what is real, it asks what can be real when we observe it. In this, it mirrors the shifting nature of attention itself. Neuroscience tells us that the act of focusing changes the way neurons fire, synchronizing them into waves that resonate across regions of the brain. Focus creates coherence. Coherence creates structure. Structure births perception. But what is focus? It is not just a narrowing. It is a tuning, a vibrational alignment between mind and moment. And in quantum terms, focus is the collapse of a superposition, a choice among many realities. Each brainwave frequency becomes a key, unlocking different possibilities of what the mind can access. The deeper the frequency, the wider the field it touches. Theta, for instance, is the pulse of the subconscious, of childhood memories and ancient emotions buried in the folds of limbic matter. But beneath those biological associations lies a quantum layer, one where the mind drifts beyond identity, where past and future lose their edge, and where the self merges with the field of possibility. Quantum thinking does not proceed step by step. It does not seek conclusion through deduction. It pulses through paradox. It tolerates ambiguity. This is mirrored in the brain's own nonlinear style of intelligence. Networks light up simultaneously in different areas. Emotional circuits influence logical patterns. Intuition surges ahead of reason. The brain, like a quantum field, processes in wholeness, not sequence. Gamma waves, the highest measurable brain frequencies, pulse above 30 Hz and reach toward 100 Hz and beyond. These are linked to states of heightened awareness, moments of deep insight, unity, compassion, and sudden understanding. But gamma is not a thinking wave. It is a knowing wave. It arises when the entire brain resonates as one, when disparate neural regions synchronize into a single conscious moment. This global coherence mirrors what quantum physicists call entanglement. When separated elements act as one, across space and time, the parallel is uncanny. In entanglement, two particles mirror each other no matter how far apart. In gamma coherence, regions of the brain synchronize to create a moment of wholeness, a state where inner fragmentation disappears. The experience of this is ineffable. It is felt as clarity, as stillness inside light, as a flash of truth not grasped but embodied. The wave becomes the knowing. The mind becomes the field. And this field does not end at the skull. Evidence, from subtle neuroscience experiments and quantum biology, suggests that consciousness may not be entirely contained within the brain. Rather, the brain acts as a receiver, a transducer of consciousness, selecting specific frequencies from a universal spectrum. Brainwaves in this light are less like internal signals and more like tuning instructions, methods of accessing different layers of information woven into the quantum substrate of the cosmos. The concept of zero-point energy, the lowest possible energy a quantum system may have, suggests a background field of infinite potential energy. Some theorists believe consciousness interfaces with this field through intention, attention, and resonance. Brainwaves may be the mechanism through which resonance occurs, aligning the personal with the impersonal, the inner world with the universal field. This is not mysticism dressed as science. It is a convergence of models. As cognitive neuroscience reveals the mind's complexity, quantum theory expands the definition of what reality allows. Where they meet, quantum thinking arises, not just as a cognitive technique, but as a reorientation of the self toward the unknown, toward paradox, toward the creative space between what is and what could be. To think quantumly is to allow uncertainty, to dwell not on control, but on coherence. And coherence is the heart of brainwave harmony, when different parts of the brain oscillate together, allowing thought to leap, insight to bloom, and emotion to integrate without conflict. The most brilliant human experiences, art, compassion, innovation, awe, are born in such states of coherent, quantum-aligned mind. Not all frequencies are equal, but none are separate. Like notes in a scale, they harmonize to create the music of selfhood. From the slow bass of delta to the shimmering treble of gamma, the spectrum of brainwaves is a sacred geometry of thought, and each pattern may be the echo of a deeper principle, one governed not by logic or chemical reaction, but by the strange, luminous math of quantum consciousness. Somewhere between the wave and the particle, between the neuron and the star, the mind floats curious, creative, unfinished, and in its frequencies we hear the echo of a question the universe keeps asking itself through us. What more can thought become when it knows it is more than the brain? In the cathedral of silence that surrounds each breath, the mind pulses, not as a singular voice but as a choir of waves. Each thought ripples through a network of delicate frequencies, and within those ripples lies the code of perception. Yet beneath the measurable oscillations of the brain, there is a subtler entanglement, one that joins the inner world with the fabric of the outer universe, unbound by space or time. Entanglement in the quantum sense defies classical thought. Two particles once linked remain bound across infinite distances. What alters one alters the other instantly. This is not metaphor, it is measured, repeated, undeniable. It tells us that reality is not separate but relational. That information does not move through space, it leaps across it, as if space itself were only an illusion. What then of the brain, nested in the body, yet able to imagine stars, remember past lives, or feel the grief of another across oceans? Thought, in this deeper view, becomes more than internal function. It becomes entangled event. Brainwaves, in this frame, are not private, they are portals. They synchronize not just regions of the cortex, but possibly the very frequencies of subjective and external worlds. When two people meditate together, studies have shown that their brainwaves can synchronize, even without physical contact. This coherence, subtle and spontaneous, suggests a kind of bio-quantum entanglement, an invisible bridge between minds. It echoes the ancient mystical understanding that minds are not isolated islands, but radiant threads of a shared tapestry, woven into the quantum weave of being. Delta waves, slow and deep, represent the body's anchoring into rest, regeneration, and unconscious process. But within their slowness is an openness, an invitation into the background of awareness. Some describe the delta state as a gateway into the zero-point field, the silent hum that permeates existence with potential. In this stillness, the self dissolves, and the field breathes through the body. Healing arises, time evaporates, the illusion of separateness weakens. Theta waves, more fluid, more dreamlike, are the seam between imagination and memory. They are the undercurrent of vision and myth, where symbolic thinking and nonlinear logic emerge. In theta, one may remember futures not yet lived, or uncover patterns buried in childhood dust. This state does not process, it reveals. It offers not analysis but access, pulling ideas from the periphery of mind like constellations out of darkness. Quantum thinking resides most naturally in this liminal state, not as a skill, but as a mode of openness. It does not fear paradox, for paradox is its native language. It does not resolve contradiction. It holds both truths in superposition, allowing a third way to emerge. The brain, when allowed to dwell in theta, mirrors this posture, letting go of linearity and embracing possibility. Alpha waves arise when the mind becomes present but relaxed, aware but not grasping. These frequencies are the tuning forks of creativity and clarity, opening space for subtle intuition to rise. In this balanced field, ideas coalesce without force. The prefrontal cortex, seat of deliberate action, quiets. The sensory world grows sharper. Thought becomes fluid, not as reaction but as rhythm. Beta waves dominate the active mind, where language, logic, and alertness reside. In excess, they fragment, but when harmonized with deeper waves, they give structure to insight, giving voice to intuition and form to abstraction. It is not that one wave is superior, but that the harmony among them creates the song of conscious experience. Quantum thinking arises not in a single frequency, but in the shifting ratios between them, an adaptive intelligence that flows rather than fixes. And in the rare bloom of gamma, the brain experiences itself as a totality. Sensation, memory, emotion, and insight fuse into a unified field. These are the moments of mystical union, of sudden comprehension, of ineffable joy or beauty that cannot be explained but can never be forgotten. In gamma, the mind becomes a mirror of the cosmos, whole, luminous, indivisible. Across this spectrum, the brain is not a machine but a musical instrument. Each state of consciousness is a chord, and the self is the melody played across ever-shifting keys. The frequencies we call brainwaves are not just patterns, they are permissions. Each one grants the mind access to a specific register of reality. In quantum terms, they collapse one set of probabilities and reveal another. They are the mind's way of choosing its universe. And what of intention? What role does desire play in shaping this field? In quantum experiments, mere intention alters outcomes. In the laboratory of the mind, intention is no different. It acts like a magnet within the probability field, drawing certain patterns into coherence. When brainwaves synchronize with a coherent intention, the entire system begins to resonate, like a crystal tuned to a distant vibration. This resonance is not merely mental, it becomes physiological. Heart rate slows, hormonal cascades adjust, immune responses shift. The body is not separate from the quantum mind. It is its echo in form. Every thought, each moment of focused attention, leaves an imprint not only on neurons but possibly on the very geometry of the quantum field that surrounds and permeates us. Thus, the connection between brain waves and quantum thinking is not symbolic, it is structural, it is functional, it is intimate. To think in waves is to move through possibility. To feel in coherence is to touch the fabric of creation. And in those moments of still awareness when the mind becomes transparent and time suspends, something beyond the brain awakens. It listens, it speaks in frequencies, and it remembers that it was never separate from the universe, but only pretending to be, for the sake of the dream. Beneath the shifting architecture of thought, beyond the circuitry of neurons and the pathways of perception, there moves a deeper rhythm, ancient, unmeasured, a frequency without sound yet felt by every cell. In this rhythm lies the unspoken language of consciousness. Not bound by words, not captured by form, it pulses in waves, in oscillations, in quantum whispers that shape the mind's unfolding. Frequency is not a metaphor, it is structure. It is the scaffold on which experience rests. The brain does not merely produce frequencies, it responds to them, translates them, aligns with them. It is both transmitter and receiver in a larger, invisible lattice of resonance. Brain waves are not isolated events within skull-bound circuits. They are echoes of a larger field, a symphony of mind that stretches across dimensions we have yet to name. Each wave carries meaning not in its shape, but in its vibration. Delta moves like the slow breath of earth, grounding the self in bodily silence. It is not sleep, it is restoration. In this low hum, the body regenerates, the unconscious reorders itself, and the boundary between self and world becomes porous. Many mystics speak of this state as the place where matter listens to spirit, where the physical realm becomes transparent to intention. Theta is the bridge. It flows like a tide beneath the surface, carrying dreams, archetypes, emotional maps not drawn by logic, but by the deep waters of the soul. In Theta, the mind does not grasp, it remembers. It opens to the invisible pattern of things, feeling its way through symbols and shadows. It is in this frequency that quantum thinking first becomes possible, not as theory, but as lived experience. Possibility enters, and with it, the soft shimmer of insight. Alpha stabilizes. Neither too fast nor too slow, it grants access to balance, to a state where the senses become sharp but not overwhelmed, where thought arises like a feather drifting on calm water. In Alpha, the mind becomes permeable. Intuition emerges not from strain but from stillness. This is the frequency of the open gate, the poised awareness that allows the quantum mind to navigate its own paradoxes without drowning in them. Beta is the forge, quick, linear, precise. It sharpens thought into language, into action. When in balance, it gives structure to vision, moving the abstract into the tangible. But too much beta fractures the coherence of the deeper waves. It cuts the music short, favoring noise over nuance. And yet, without beta, the quantum mind would remain a silent cathedral, beautiful, infinite, and mute. Gamma, rare and radiant, is the peak, the flashpoint where all frequencies align and fire as one. In these moments, the mind transcends its local frame. Awareness widens to include all things. These states are rare not because they are unreachable, but because we do not yet know how to hold them. Gamma does not arrive through effort. It emerges from coherence. It is the signature of unity, neural, emotional, cosmic. Frequency is thus not just a brain function. It is a translation of consciousness into matter. And consciousness, in its deepest essence, may be nothing more than frequency, differentiated, filtered, perceived. In this view, what we call thought is vibration slowed into pattern. What we call memory is a frequency loop repeating. What we call identity is a resonance, unique yet mutable. Quantum thinking approaches this with humility. It does not reduce the mind to matter, nor elevate it beyond nature. It sees the mind as field, an interactive geometry of waves responding to larger rhythms. In this model, choice becomes phase alignment. To choose a thought is to attune to a frequency. To change a belief is to shift a resonance. Healing, too, is frequency. When discord resolves into harmony, when the mind's waves realign with the deeper music of the whole. This brings the body into the frame, not as machine, but as resonant chamber. The heart, with its own electromagnetic field, sends waves through the entire system. The gut, with its neural plexus, responds to emotional vibrations long before the cortex registers them. These systems communicate not just with chemicals, but with rhythm. They entrain with one another. They form coherence, or fall into chaos. When the brain's frequencies fall into coherence with the heart and gut, a powerful alignment emerges, a biological resonance that some call flow, others call grace. In these states, the quantum mind flourishes. Possibility opens. Ideas arrive unbidden. The body heals. Time slows. Creativity surges without effort. This is not magic. It is resonance. It is the physics of harmony. And what of reality? If the mind is frequency, and frequency shapes perception, then perhaps reality is not fixed at all. Perhaps it is selected, attuned, entered. Each brain state, each thought pattern, may align us with a different layer of the quantum field, a different thread in the tapestry of what can be. The multiverse may not be out there in some vast cosmological expanse, but woven into the structure of mind itself. Quantum thinking does not require complex mathematics. It requires stillness, It requires attention tuned like an instrument. It requires the willingness to dwell in mystery, to trust the wave before the particle forms. It is a surrender, not to randomness, but to a deeper order that reveals itself only when control is released. This surrender is not passive. It is participation. It is listening with the whole body. It is allowing insight to arrive from the field itself, from that place where self and universe are not separate, but phases of the same unfolding waveform. In this space, the brain stops thinking and begins tuning. Consciousness becomes less about content and more about contact. Not what you know, but what you resonate with. Not what you hold, but what you become. And the more coherent the field, the clearer the reflection. The more silent the mind, the more vivid the message. Thus, brainwaves are not noise. They are mirrors. They show us how we meet the world. They show us the shape of our presence. They are not causes, but invitations to harmonize, to awaken, to remember the quantum language we have always known. Somewhere between stillness and thought, between pulse and perception, there is a presence watching. Not the self that names or judges, but something quieter, an observer that sees before sight, that listens before sound, that simply is. This, awareness, ungrasping and vast, may be the key to both brainwave coherence and quantum potential. For in it, the field begins to respond. It is not through effort that the mind touches the infinite. It is through the intimacy of silent presence. At the root of quantum theory lies the observer effect. The act of observation changes what is observed. Photons behave as waves when unmeasured and as particles when watched. Possibility collapses into actuality in the moment of attention. This principle reverberates beyond the laboratory, hinting that consciousness itself is not separate from the structure of reality. It is entangled with it. In the same breath, brainwave patterns shift in the presence of mindful awareness. Frequencies that once scattered into chaos fall into coherence, into rhythm. Thought changes not just the brain, but the field in which the brain floats. This observer is not a thinker. It does not cling to emotion or memory. It is awareness without anchor, clear, undivided watching. And when the mind becomes this observer, brainwave patterns begin to harmonize. Delta no longer signifies mere sleep, but a deeper grounding into universal frequency. Theta becomes the wellspring of insight. Alpha, the corridor of intuitive clarity. Beta, a sculptor of form. Gamma, the crown of unified awareness. Each wave, once isolated, now pulses in orchestration, responding not to stimulus but to state. This inner observer does not fight thought. It watches it arise and fall, like waves on the ocean. It is not moved by fear or desire, but it sees them both. And in this seeing, something subtle shifts. The thinker relaxes, the field opens, and the quantum realm begins to stir. Quantum thinking is not about solving problems. It is about dissolving the structures that limit possibility. It is not linear. It moves like intuition, like art. It is not built through logic but revealed through coherence. When the observer watches in stillness, brain waves align like planets in orbit, and in that alignment, possibility ripens. The field listens. What we call consciousness may not reside in the brain at all, but in the field itself, woven through every cell, humming in every atom, waiting in every silence. The brain, then, becomes an interface, a translator of wave into word, of potential into pattern. Brain waves do not originate consciousness, they reflect it. They are the fingerprints of awareness as it dances through biology, and frequency is the medium. The field responds to coherence, not volume. A coherent thought aligned with still presence resonates more deeply than 1,000 distracted impulses. Intention becomes the tuning fork, and the observer is the musician. This insight does not require belief. It requires experience. Sit in silence. Watch the mind. Notice how the act of watching changes what is watched. The waves calm. The rhythm slows. The field sharpens. In this subtle shift, you are no longer Separate from your thoughts, you are the space they arise in. The more the brain is allowed to rest in this observing presence, the more it begins to entrain with deeper layers of awareness. Patterns that once dominated, anxiety, rumination, dissonance, lose their charge. They dissolve, not through suppression, but through illumination. The field is not forceful, it reveals. And in this revealing, the mind rediscovers its true nature, not as a closed container of identity, but as a waveform, shaped by intention, tuned by frequency, nourished by stillness. Quantum thinking is not superhuman. It is deeply human. It returns us to the original technology of consciousness, attention. To direct attention is to sculpt reality. To choose thought is to select a frequency. To hold presence is to awaken. Coherence, these are not metaphors. They are mechanisms, and they begin always with the observer. You are not just your thoughts. You are the awareness that watches them. You are not the waves. You are the sea. And in the stillness of that sea, entire worlds await their unfolding. If this journey through the intersection of brainwaves and quantum thinking has opened new doors within your awareness, we invite you to continue the exploration. Like, share, and subscribe to support the creation of more content like this. Let the wave carry you deeper into the mystery, and thank you for being part of this field.